From a thing, time for the weekly where I do the thing.
Excuse me, young man, can I help you?
It's, it's me, dude. It's Soul.
Ah, I see you're done cosplayed as an adult. Good for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna start the show now.
Okay, let me know if you need a booster seat, okay? And did you wash your face? And did you have enough water for your sippy?
Hey, it's Soul, and welcome back to Warcraft Weekly, the show that kept its promise. Do us a favor for the algorithm, show some support by liking this video and subscribing for more content. So over the past few days, fan sites and content creators alike have been extensively covering the patch 9.2 reveals so far, and we're going to get to that, or you can use the navigation bar to skip ahead a little bit because we're going to cover some other news first. Over on the WoW Classic side of the planet, the Season of Mastery is just around the corner, and it's going to open up worldwide simultaneously November 16th. In the meantime, name reservations started this week, meaning now's your chance to grab names and sell them. The name I took? Haruma Red X, because who wouldn't? And let's talk about this little 915 detail that most everyone on the PTR had missed. The teleporter that takes a person close to the Sanctum of Domination raid and the world boss, it seems to only work if you had cleared the raid one time. Note that the reason for the miss was because most everyone who participates in the PTR probably cleared the Sanctum raid at some point, and because that perk is shared account-wide, there's no way that I would ever have known that there was an unlock at all. Not to say that only players like this hop onto the PTR, but maybe I am saying exactly that. Still though, this sucks, and here's my late feedback on this thing. If there was going to be a requirement, it should have been to progress far enough into the 9.1 Korthia campaign, to the point where you dispatch Helya. Spoiler alert, since you would be breaking skulls in that area anyway. Completing that chapter would unlock the world quest in the area, so why not the teleport too? Next week, just before the Season of Mastery begins over on WoW Classic, the 17-year anniversary event for the World of Warcraft begins. The usual stuff is coming back, including an experience boost token, the reappearance of the Emerald Dragons, Korak's Revenge, and a bunch of cosmetics to get with Time Warp badges. There are some new items coming as well, including a Dragonling pet and drops from a new old raid boss, Doomwalker. Bring him down for a chance at gear, including a one-handed axe and a Dragonhawk mount. And with that out of the way, let's talk more on the 9.2 announcement. Just the other day, Blizzard let their balloon of news finally burst and revealed Shadowlands 9.2, Eternity's End, which will bring to us the conclusion of the Shadowlands storyline. In a 10 or so minute video, we did not see familiar faces like game director Ian Hazzikostas or senior designers like Jeremy Fiesel or Morgan Day. The likes of them were off conducting interviews internationally on various gaming sites. Instead of the systems guys, we got folks in charge of narrative and level design, art, and lead software engineer. Hey man, that's still the glue that gets all of this stuff working together, alright? I can definitely see the logic in this, a preview of the zone and story presented by the people who make these zones and stories. I doubt we'll see it, but I would love to see a second video in the near future featuring the systems guys who talk of the zone progression features, how to get tier set outside of raid, and all those other systems updates. I want to address at least some of the community reactions, and I don't mean to say that anybody is wrong about how they feel in the slightest. I want this here to be a space where we can share our different perspectives without trying to tear each other's faces off. I already talked about what's coming in a reaction video, and then I cleaned it up and made another calmer video, so pick your poison. Links to those are in the description below. There's a lot of meat in 9.2, but here are the quick highlights. There's a new zone, there's an 11 boss raid, there's tier sets and bonuses, there's zone progression, you're able to wear 2 legendaries, there's a solo queue PvP brawl, there's a Darkmoon Fair DDR gang fight and Tazavesh Mythic Plus, and you totally hate everything. No, not everyone totally hates it, but you don't have to look very far to find those that do, because they will find you and will definitely let you know how they feel. Full stop though. Before I continue, I want to make this extremely clear for those who aren't feeling it after seeing the announcements and the interviews. I get it. In fact, today, I'm going to join you and offer my critical feedback to what we've learned about 9.2 so far while still sharing my excitement for what's ahead, because I hope it's better. Let's start with the big one so far because this is the most far along, class tier appearances, which is already, well, it's already a really spicy topic to jump on because, well, this is transmog, this is art, and the feelings here run along the entire spectrum. I found it pretty humorous to read some reactions to the sets calling them like the brand new 9.2 leveling set, and I don't blame them either. Here are the actual leveling sets for reference. I want to be fair though, so let's play a little game, okay, and we'll throw up the 2 screenshots of all these tier sets. In my opinion, these sets do look iconic, as in I can mostly tell which armor set belongs to each class. Can you spot the hunter? I'll give you a second. Of course you can spot the hunter, it's the worst looking one. Oh no, he didn't? Yeah, he did. The looks of these sets are pretty obvious for even a lightly seasoned WoW player who has a critical eye for transmog. Now let's do a pass over the others. We have this chonky guy over here in the thickest and best looking plate, so, you know, warrior. Right next to him with the horns, okay, it's the way too obvious demon hunter. Going all the way to the right, there's that thick looking armor but has the long pants, okay, paladin. Let's go to the next screenshot. The cotton candy cloud face element thing over there, that's probably a shaman. The sleek looking one that doesn't look like they really want to be there, gotta be a rogue. The one right next to him dressed like a monk, hey, it looks like a monk. The big one in the middle with the skull face, obviously a death knight. And all the way to the right with the confused looking set, actually, are those antlers? Well, I guess, that's a druid. So as for these 3, the cloth wearers, yeah, I personally can't tell who's who, and that is definitely a problem, unless you're really into the nuance of what makes a priest, a warlock, and a mage outfit what they are. There's just too little to really define which class is which. If one set was mostly white, and one was blue, and one was purple, then okay, then I'd be able to tell which one is the priest, or the mage, or the warlock, which brings me to the next critique. Still group pictures like this were just a bad idea. Thanks to the shared color palette, it's hard to see the diversity at glance. It's like looking at a bunch of store employees all trying to meet dress code. The motion shots from the preview video give a bit more personality to the sets, but I think the preview would have sold me a lot better, at least if we got to see a separate series of clips showing us each class set along with the different color tones from each difficulty. When you look at these individually, I think they seem pretty cool. As for your critiques of how the sets look, nobody's giving a wrong answer here, but without a doubt, I think that the presentation of these sets was objectively bad. To be precise, it was lazy, and that means a lot when giving this initial preview. Like, not one class was given their moment to look and feel cool, and there's a lot that I want to appreciate too. As someone who mains a paladin, I envy the warrior sets and that really good looking 3D texture on the chest. I want to see this guy rotate, I want to see if those things on the shoulders like move around and all that. The way I see it, the problem that the WoW art team made for themselves was to obey that rule of creating a set that fits the source material, which in this case is the origin of everything, a place full of basic life forms and not really anything in the way of culture, which, you know, it typically adds a lot of color and personality to these armor sets. If this was something like a Dragon Isles raid, then I think we'd see some pretty gnarly stuff from the team, but because the source material is what it is, there's not a lot to work with. Here's a tangent, but what if instead the Primus was like, alright guys, we found Zereth Mortis, we need to make an all-out assault on this realm, and, you know, the forces of Azeroth were somehow ready for a fight. Horde and Alliance warships would be like teleported into Zereth Mortis and they start moving in, causing this sort of, I don't know, a visual clash of high concept cosmic themes and zug zug for Azeroth, right? My headcanon is very strong, I'm 12 years old. Anyway, if this were to happen, then the source material for these tier sets could have had a different inspiration. In this case, it would be like the Horde and Alliance engineers hastily working together to arm its greatest champions to fight against literally the end of everything. But that didn't happen. Fortunately though, the armor sets don't end with these. If we take a closer look at the video, we can see another armor set based on the Enlightened Brokers. Note the concept art here showing this broker armor featuring actual legs and not the artificial limbs of the brokers, as well as the in-game shot of the Mechanome wearing one of these sets. The question for you folks now is, well, what do you think of these? Based on these shots, it looks like there's going to be multiple recolors of this set too. Maybe for you, this isn't better, but to me, it is is more, and I can at least appreciate that. Anyway, now I turn it over to you to share your own thoughts. Let us know what you think. Moving on, I've got big concerns over using 2 legendaries and the fact that one of them has to be a Covenant specific legendary. Now I'm going to skip the part about obtaining the legendaries and, well, with regards to the Covenant switching, the powering up of these different conduits for Covenant abilities, we're just going to focus on the managing of the gear. When it comes to balance, I actually get it. Forcing there to be a Covenant legendary takes out a lot of potentially chaotic variables that would cause the WoW team to want to do a series of buffs or nerfs that frankly would piss people off after having spent so much time crafting these. It would be 9.1 all over again. But this highlights a flaw in the team's long-term design over the course of an expansion, namely that players will flock to throughput bonuses over utility bonuses almost every time. If there's a good balance of representation between throughput and utility legendaries in Shadowlands, and 9.2 let us use one of each type, there would probably be fewer complaints. It's definitely too late for that though, so let's focus on the now and the shortly later. Let's say we crafted all of the legendaries that we need for 9.2. If I, as a paladin, wanted to switch mostly between the Kyrian and the Venthyr Covenants, I need to have a few spare pieces on me because switching from one Covenant legendary to another means that I've got to replace that empty slot with a piece of regular gear. Now I can set this up now. I've been trying out the Venthyr and I crafted a 230 belt to replace my Kyrian legendary so I can wear a legendary Venthyr cloak, so this was pretty easy. In 9.2 though, I'm going to need to make sure that the non-Covenant legendary that I want to use doesn't conflict with another legendary slot. Now for me, again, that's easy. For others though, they might have multiple legendaries that they want to use per spec and per covenant, and they need to avoid any conflicts. But then we've got to consider tier set bonuses. I can already feel the horror when a piece drops from the raid and it has tier and it conflicts with a legendary slot. And I won't be able to trade it because of the item level trade restrictions, and the item level of legendary pieces aren't factored into these fangled rules. I really don't like reacting to things that haven't happened yet, but history is on my side here. This situation is absolutely going to happen for me and probably for a lot of other people too. However, there is a path to redemption in all of this, and it comes from this forge thing in Zereth Mortis. Based on what we've learned so far, I'm going to be able to take a piece of gear and craft it into a tier set piece. Now, if I can target the piece that I want made, yeah, this does add a bit of extra work, yes. And if you don't like working towards things, that's a little bit weird, but I do get it. However, if there is a path that turns this bad luck around, then I think we're in a much better space. For now, we're on a wait and see approach on the Forge, so stay tuned as we learn more and as the PTR comes in. Moving on, let's touch on this so-called time-gated raid, starting with the schedule. When Season 3 of Shadowlands begins, the normal and heroic versions of the raid will open up. However, only the first 8 out of 11 bosses will be available. In their statements, the team wants to have the conclusion of these first 8 to have an appropriate story pacing behind it, to give it a moment to breathe or something like that. On the second week of Shadowlands Season 3, the full raid will open up, including Mythic difficulty as well as the first wing of Raid Finder. Now before I go on, I'm going to share my personal perspective. This thing does not affect me or my team in the slightest because there's pretty much zero chance that we would clear all 11 bosses in the first week of Season 3. Now, does my situation reflect the majority of Raiders' experience? Heck no. My sense of reality is all sorts of jacked up, and what do I know? I'm only 14 years old. Just this week, we finally downed heroic Sylvanas. Go us. 2 days later, this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you guys are gonna kill it, right?
No.
We're not.
How am I
not.
still alive?
We
I
have 2
usually die
healers up.
first.
I'm keeping it alive as long as I can.
Oh my god, just kill 50
Divine shield, divine shield.
Just bubble.
No, I tried doing it in time. I panicked.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
No, stop.
That's embarrassing.
Meanwhile, depending on who you talk to, literal apes have been clearing this raid since early July. Now, I totally get it if you're the type of raider who wants to clear the new raid in the first week of the season on normal and or heroic, and then stop raiding until the next one. I'm sure there are some of you out there. Those are the people who are most impacted by this design decision, and in their case, they're screwed. Boo Blizzard. But I think it's safe to argue that a lot of us are not going to clear the raid on the very first week, so really, the effects of this change lie with the story beats and the race to world first. Touching on the story first, thanks to the likes of YouTube and Twitch, we can live a video game story vicariously through the eyes of others, but that choice does not take away the bad feelings that come from pretty much being forced to run group content to experience story. I've given tons of critiques to Final Fantasy XIV and being forced to run group content or else I hit a wall. Warcraft's wall isn't quite the same thing, but in a game where story beats are spread like all over the place, including outside of the game, accessibility to the experience is unfortunately an afterthought. But I wouldn't be saying this if the entirety of Raid Finder opened up on the second week, giving everyone the opportunity to experience the full story straight away. So how does this affect the race to world first? Last season, European Guild Echo was able to clear Mythic Sanctum in a single reset. It's possible that the race could end on this first reset as well, for any number of reasons, but let's speculate on the impact of this little delay. For the sake of argument, let's assume that tier sets in the Sepulchre of the First Ones, or SFO, is going to have a 2 and a 4-piece bonus. There's a high likelihood that 2-piece bonuses will be obtainable from the first 8 bosses of SFO, but loot tables could also be designed that the 4-piece bonus is pretty much impossible to obtain without gear from the last 3 bosses. So what we're going to expect from top guilds is a lot of split runs between normal and heroic for the sake of completing set bonuses in the first week. On the second week, aka the start of Mythic, we can expect the same behavior, including probably some Raid Finder in case tier can be found there too. The splits will be even more important on that second week because a lot might hinge on who is able to obtain a 4-set bonus. That might decide the race, or it might not. The raid could be tuned just well enough to make it virtually impossible to clear without enough 2 or 4-set bonuses, and if so, bad feelings are going to be had and a US guild like Limits could be handed the crown. I know I'm leaning back towards that whole tier set conversation, but the point is that's about the extent that this 1-week impact will have on the season. It is a concern worth discussing, but the way that I look at it, this is like another one of those situations where the worst part of a thing is the news and reactions about it and not the thing itself. And that's the show. This has been an exciting few number of days with tons of mixed reactions and conversations. Now, I don't have a clue if 9.2 is going to turn out well, but it has definitely piqued my interest in finding out. In the meantime, I have way too much transmog to farm in World of Warcraft, and there's an entire holiday season's worth of games to check out. I'm painfully aware that not everyone is excited. Some have totally written off 9.2 and WoW altogether, even though you're here watching, so at least I appreciate that. So let's give a warm thanks to the subscribers over at Twitch and the patrons who help keep the channel running. It's been a while since I've read off some names, but at least you made it to the end, and I'm grateful all the same. Next week, the anniversary event begins, and I'll remind you all on Monday. So have a great weekend, and until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy. All right, here we go. Let's put it on. Let's go.
Bananas in pajamas.